Hello, thank you for listening. I'm going to talk about maths. Yes, it's maths, folks, but not as you know it. I spent more than 3 decades as a mathematics teacher. I truly love the subject, but I can pretty much guarantee that what I'm going to talk about was never mentioned when you were at school. And that's despite it being not only pretty simple stuff, promise, it's of absolutely vital importance in understanding the world, including ourselves. This is sacred maths. First of all, here's a question for you. What does the Great Pyramid of Giza have in common with the United Nations Secretariat? Need a clue? It's the same thing that Leonardo da Vinci has in common with Claude Debussy and your head. I hope that helps. Now, before we answer that, I should mention a few things that are not sacred maths. Numerology, for one. There's an awful lot written and talked about on numerology, and most of it is, I'm afraid, awful. Turn the letters of your name into numbers. A is 1, B is 2. Then add the numbers of your birth date and add all the digits together, unless you've got 11, 22 or 33, until you get one digit. This is going to define your entire character and life purpose. So it seems there are only 12 types of character and life purposes, and that's assuming you're not a Chaldean who doesn't recognize the number 9. Or if you have a different alphabet, or a different calendar. Extra layers have even been thought up to give us a life path and soul urge numbers. I'm a 6 apparently, so that means I'm compassionate and I channel positive energy to everyone. Not sure many of my students would agree with that. There are a few other flaws in the system too. For one thing, people sometimes change their names, or are known by family and friends by different names, or have important middle names. Pablo Picasso had 14 names. Actually, that's nothing. There was a certain German typographer had 28 names, and his surname had 596 letters. I'm guessing Hubert Blaine, for short, wasn't a big fan of numerology. Then we have the so-called angel numbers. Do you keep seeing 1111 or 555? Well, that means you're embarking on a new path or going through some changes in your life. You probably knew that anyway, didn't you? But at least an angel has confirmed it. A belief that you keep seeing 1111 is an example of yellow elephant syndrome. What's that? Well, whatever you do, don't think about yellow elephants. Oh no, there they are. This is an example of self-affirmation, simply seeing what we expect or want to see, and ignoring all other similar sights. These beliefs about numbers may be an interesting way to pass the time, but at the end of the day, they're not really helpful on our spiritual journey, are they? They're not going to affect the way we live or guide our responses to significant events. And let's remember that numbers are, after all, basically just a human invention to help us count things. That doesn't stop some conspiracy theories about the mystical nature of certain numbers. A famous example arose in the 1960s, when the American author and artist William Burroughs wrote that he'd met a ferry operator in Tangiers named Captain Clark, who boasted that he hadn't had an accident in 23 years. That night, the ferry sank. Clark died. The same night, an Eastern Airlines plane piloted by a different Captain Clark crashed. It was flight number 23. Burroughs called such events the 23 Enigma, ascribing mystical properties to the number. Guess what? It even has its own Wikipedia page. If true, and let's not forget that this story started over a few drinks in a rough bar, it's surely no more than an interesting coincidence. A similar example was reported by C.G. Jung, who described an evening outing when the number of his tram ticket turned out to be the same as his theatre ticket. And then later that evening he received a telephone call when the same digits were mentioned as a telephone number. But these events didn't mean anything, just coincidence. Of course, those who love numbers are often not worried at all about a lack of meaning. Arithmetic is full of peculiarities. There are mystery numbers, for example, which are the sum of two other numbers whose digits are reversed. For example, 121 equals 29 plus 92. There are even perfect numbers, which are the sum of their own factors, excluding themselves. 6 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. There's nothing mysterious or mystical about these things. They're just oddities. So far, admittedly, I've been rather negative about mathematics, so let's turn the tables and admit that there may be something a bit mysterious about mandalas. The name means circle in Sanskrit, and indeed most mandalas are circular geometric designs, sometimes within a square. Originally, they symbolized the universe or paradise or the spiritual journey, from the outer edge towards the center. They're usually painted, but can even be made with astonishing skill and reverence in colored sand. An example of this was the Chenrezig mandala, created to celebrate the Dalai Lama's visit to the UK in 2008. Mandalas have been used for millennia in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Shinto as an aid to meditation. They embody deep meanings in the symbols used and their geometric forms. And lately, mandalas have gained a fresh popularity in New Age culture. Any number of spiritually minded artists have turned out their own versions, with circles and spirals and nice colors in more or less complex patterns. Few of them bear any comparison to the beauty and significance of the ancient religious creations. They're just pictures. Sorry, I'm being negative again. But look, the truth is that even the most extraordinary Buddhist or Hindu mandala is still a purely human creation. Many people call this sacred geometry, but there's nothing at all inherently sacred about geometry, especially when it's used to represent one particular human belief. Surely, the word sacred should be reserved for something beyond human invention, beyond our thinking minds, something numinous, ineffable. And as it turns out, yes, mathematics can indeed help us with this.